All right. Hello, everybody.
Hello, 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 hello. I'm excited. Are you excited?
I am very excited. First off, this is our first time attempting to do a screen recording, to do a video recording of the podcast. So here we go. So if you see us
Hello.
looking very weird in weird ways throughout, it's like we're not used to doing the camera thing.
Yeah.
So hello, welcome. But yeah, this is it's been an exciting week for
Yeah,
for Quantum Leap fans, for keepers of the faith.
it really, really has. And, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff that has rolled out over the past week or two. But the first thing that I want to say is to address the stuff that we put out on social media. Um, we have had some amazing information come our way. And I feel incredibly lucky to be in the know. Uh, we've mentioned before, we have a source, and we're going to call them the Observer.
I love it. Yeah.
Because why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
And the Observer has, through word of mouth, let us in on some things. And I just want to say up front that there are certain things that we are figuring out how to communicate. There are certain things that we can't yet communicate. And there are certain things that, frankly, I don't know that we want to communicate yet. And that is, as odd as this might sound, for your benefit, as well as the observers, because clearly we don't want to get anyone in trouble. We can confirm that the Observer works for NBC. So anything that they tell us is, straight from NBC.
Yeah.
And we're treading carefully and trying to use discretion because, again, we don't want to step on any toes. And we also don't necessarily want to say anything that turns out to be untrue, because this early in the project, there are a couple of things that are in flux. And there are some things that are not. So we're going to do our best. And our intention is to update as often as possible. Certainly at least get a podcast out every week, and bring you whatever we can. We're in pretty close contact with our source, so it's easy to kind of navigate, what we can say when we can say based off of their advice. But at the same time, again, this is the first time we've ever done this.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, we introduce ourselves. It's the first time you ever listening or watching. I am Dennis.
I'm Sam.
We've been doing the Quantum Leap Fates Wide Wheel, our Quantum Leap podcast. We've been doing it since 2017. We finished the series proper about a year ago, did some other offshoot stuff, and have come back to this. We were dormant for about 8 months, but now we're back since the announcement that NBC finally ordered a reboot. So
yeah, it's been an interesting journey to have chronicled the entire original series, which is crazy to me that we're now saying the original series, because
sure,
there's
yeah.
There's going
you
to
know
be
what
this,
I want to put out there. I want to start calling it the classic series.
the classic series. All right.
I want to start putting that out there.
I'm
But
fine
anyway,
with that.
yeah. So in the interest of brevity,
Yes.
which is not our strength,
No.
let's put that out there. So we should dive right in and say what is confirmed out there for public consumption, and then we'll move into what we know because of the Observer.
Yes.
How about that?
That sounds great.
So the big confirmed news that came out this week is that Helen Shaver is going to be the director of the pilot episode, and the pilot is planned to be shooting over 3 weeks' time in Vancouver during the month of March.
March 9th through March 30th. And that is, we found that out due to some investigative work by a friend of the show, Matt Dale. Again, if you're tuning into us for the very first time and you're not familiar with who Matt is, Matt, in addition to being one of the co-hosts of the Quantum Leap podcast, also is the writer of the book Beyond the Mirror Image, which is pretty much the book for Quantum Leap.
Yes. If you have that, we'll put it in our show notes. We try to do that anyway, but we're going to put it in the show notes specifically for this episode. If you don't have the book and you're a Quantum Leap fan, you absolutely must have that book, because
Absolutely.
anything you want to know about Quantum Leap or the production, whatever there, if it was out there for public consumption in any way, shape, or form, Matt managed to get a hold of it.
Yeah.
And it is very much, it was a big hand in us even starting this podcast back in 2017.
That's right.
So anyway, excellent. Yeah. So go check that book out. But yeah, that information was confirmed through him, and he has a website. I think it's called quantumleapinfo.net.
That's correct. Quantumleapinfo.net, which will also be in the show notes, is a wonderful resource for all the news that's been released thus far, confirmed news. He's not, putting up rumors and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, I will be honest, I don't think I'm very familiar with the work of Helen Shaver.
So the funny thing is that I know her from a couple of her acting roles. The big one being Desert Hearts, which is just a fantastic movie. It's an early, well, not early. I mean, it was made in what I think the early 80s. No, later than that. When did it come out? See, now I'm looking unprepared. 85.
Sure.
I had it there in front of me. 1985 film, LGBT film, and it's just a fantastic film. I certainly recommend it, and she's incredible in it. But unbeknownst to me, I had absolutely seen a couple of things that she had directed as well, because her television credits, as far as directing goes, are pretty extensive, going back about 25 years. She's directed just a variety of shows, and even an episode of Journeyman, which is obviously something that I saw because I watched that show. We've talked about it before in the podcast. She's directed more recently some episodes of Lovecraft Country, Snowpiercer, Westworld. So she's got a great pedigree, I think, for this type of program. The kind of genre TV that Quantum Leap is and will be. And I think she just brings kind of a unique presence in general, with her experience being involved in film and television for nearly 50 years now.
Sure.
So, I mean, why not get somebody that's got all of that experience to shoot your pilot, right?
Yeah, and I will say more broadly, like the classic series. There we go. The classic series had women directors for 2, maybe 3 episodes.
Yeah, I think it's 3 episodes. And of course, one of those people directed 2 episodes.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was definitely it was not commonplace. Yeah, it was definitely a boys club. Thank you.
Yes. So yeah, I was excited to hear that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the amazing thing is that Quantum Leap, of course, had a strong presence in the writers' room when it came to women because of Deborah Pratt. We, I think, owe a great deal of the quality of the show to, quite frankly, and she will have some sort of involvement with the new show. We know from the original Deadline and Hollywood Reporter announcement that there would be this reboot / continuation. Again, I just think it's a great choice, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what she brings to it, because when you are directing the pilot, you and the creators and the producer kind of help set the tone for the rest of the series. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes from the creators and producers, Steve Lilliam, Brian Winbrandt, and Martin Garrow, but she's going to have that chair at the end of the day. She's going to be the one calling those shots. And again, getting someone with her background seems as though they really do want to, in my humble opinion, focus on the acting as well as any sort of visual style. And that excites me, because I think one of the things that I loved so dearly about the classic series, it was the acting. We had fantastic performances, not only from our 2 leads, obviously, but also from the myriad of guest stars we got over the years.
Absolutely. And especially the pilot episode.
Yeah.
I wanted to jump back and say, like, the one episode from the classic series I wanted to point out, directed by a woman, was Debbie Allen, and that
Yes.
was Private Dancer, and she also guest starred in that episode as well. Significant because even though it was not a special episode as far as like ratings go, like, like a special message or whatever I should say, um, during the original run of the show, it was the highest rated episode
Yeah.
of the series
And
for
she
whatever reason.
also is whom I was referring to earlier, because she also directed Revenge of the Evil Leaper. So she actually directed 2 episodes of
Yes,
the classic
okay.
series. Yeah.
Two very different episodes,
Two
totally
very
speaking.
different episodes.
totally,
Yeah.
totally speaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that being said, should we dive into what we can say because of information that we got from the Observer?
Yeah.
Now dive into that. I'm not going to number the list in case we say something that we got to cut out or something or whatever, in case we get lost. I'm not going to number the list. So first off, the first thing that we can confirm is that earlier this week, the website, the hashtag show, released an article called Meet the Key Characters in the Quantum Leap Reboot. And they gave basically like a casting notice, a character description, not actors cast, but the character description. And it didn't cite a source. So we shared it, a couple other pages shared it, but we had to share it with a grain of salt that we don't know if this is for real or not. And we can confirm that the article that got put out, the characters in there are for real. Like, these are the characters that we are going to see in the pilot.
100% genuine. It is possible, we're a little over a month away from shooting beginning. It is possible that names could change, but at this point they're probably locked in.
Sure.
But it's the characters themselves, the descriptions that are there, and the character names that are listed as of right now, that is 100% genuine. We can confirm that through the Observer. And it's funny because we did obviously take it with a grain of salt. We didn't know for certain if this was the real deal. I remember when I saw it and wanted to get it up there as quickly as possible, but wanted to put that disclaimer on there. So let's talk about it. Let's talk now that we know that it's for real. We're not just sitting here speculating. What do we think of these characters?
I love it. I will say at first I was a little disappointed because for almost 20 years now, I have been holding on to the idea that a new series would have Sammy Jo, Sam's daughter from the classic series. I held on to either that or that we would see a woman as the Leaper. Not the case. Yeah. So we have a Dr. Ben Prasad, who is the casting calls for someone in their mid-30s to early 40s, someone of AAPI or MENA descent, and that is for Asian American, Pacific Islander, or Middle Eastern, North African descent.
Yes.
I wanted to make that clear because we posted that on our Facebook page. Some people question what those acronyms stood for, and that's what those stand for there. So yeah, I never thought it's just like, oh, we're gonna have another guy, but it's just gonna be not a white guy.
Right.
So whatever that says about me, be that what it may.
Yeah, it's funny because I was certainly given the impression in early discussions that I had with the Observer that we would have a female lead. That said, I will go so far as to say that based off of what we've been told, that the other characters that are listed here, it really is more of an ensemble show. Even though Ben is our Leaper, everyone has a pretty heavy role to play, especially Addison, who's the next character that's listed here. But yeah, Ben might be our Leaper, but this is definitely not this isn't the classic series when it comes to the makeup of our cast and how they will be utilized.
Sure.
One of the things that's mentioned here that we can also confirm is it does say that Ben uses the project on himself and he's transported back to the late 80s and struck with a bout of amnesia. That's all true. The late 80s is right, and he does indeed have a Swiss cheese memory. So it's again, it's spot on. I can't speak to other parts of the description, although because we can confirm that it's true, I am assuming that this whole world-renowned physicist and man of faith stuff is also true. Um, I mean, it sounds to me like they are crafting a character that has some similarities to Sam, but is not necessarily analogous to Sam, which is smart.
Absolutely. Sure. So we say, as far as Addison, it doesn't say this in the character description, but from everything they say, I think it's safe to say she is going to be the observer on the show. She is going to be the hologram
I think
of the show.
we can go ahead and confirm that. We have been told that Addison
Okay,
is
all right.
indeed.
I was kind of talking around
Yeah,
that. Yes.
yeah.
So Addison is going to be the observer. We have Ian Wright, who is a non-binary character, the chief architect of the AI program. The closest analogy of the classic series would be Gushi, even though from the character description we're seeing, like, personality wise, nothing like Gushi.
Very different.
And then we have, I'm going to say this one for last. Then we have Jen, who is the head of security at the project. And then we have Herbert Magic Williams, which that name jumped out at me when I read it, because fans of the series will recognize him as the Leap B from the Leap Home Part 2 Vietnam.
Yes. I'm thrilled that this is a character in the new series. I am thrilled that they're using some sort of connective tissue, not only with obviously the project and kind of dropping hints at the possibility of other connections, but that we have a literal character from the original series involved, and done in an interesting and unique way, because I don't think that anyone would have guessed this one. Do you know what I mean? Like, nobody out there was probably sitting around and be like, oh, they're going to use magic,
I know, right? Exactly. Now, I guess it is worth mentioning, because there was some discussion on this in one of the threads that we posted between me and Carol Davis, who is very active in one of the Facebook groups, and she's an author of at least one, I think a couple of the Quantum Leap novels in the late 90s. Them using magic does suggest a bit of a retconning of magic's age, because I was doing the math. Magic as the Leap B was in the Vietnam episode, which took place in 1969.
Right.
Youngest he would be maybe 19 or 20, which means that the series takes place in present day, which what the press release says, he would at least be in his like 70s or early 70s, but they have him in his 60s. So I'm guessing they're kind of retconning Magic's age a little bit.
That is a possibility. I'm certainly not going to go so far as to add to that conjecture, quite honestly, because I think that there are ways around that.
Sure.
So that's a wait and see for me. But I understand why some people might think that to be the case. It's worth noting, by the way, we haven't actually named it, that Magic was the character that Sam leapt into in the Leap Home Part 2, which of course kicked off the third season as a sequel to the second part, rather, of the Leap Home. I think by having that character specifically, to the connection that we know to Sam's life and the importance that character had, and that leap had for Sam, is another thing that it exemplifies something that I've been told by the Observer numerous times, and that's that these guys love Quantum Leap. That this is not just like Steve, Brian, and Martin are not just taking this as a job. They genuinely love Quantum Leap. And again, I've been told that numerous times, that they get the show, that they understand the show, and that they love it. So it just kind of adds to the notion that we're in good hands. And I think that the character kind of signifies that for me as well.
Absolutely. And so one more bit of this before we move on from Magic. never really looked into who played Magic in the Leap Home Part 2, because other than a couple, like I think we only like see his reflection once,
Yeah.
close to the beginning. That was played by actor Christopher Kirby, and I just looked him up on IMDb. He is still very active. Seems like be mostly a character actor. Like it doesn't seem like he like really found like you wouldn't know him like specifically from one thing unless you just followed his career and were a super fan. So I am curious to see, does he end up as
right.
does he end up as Magic?
So I think that one of the things that, and this is purely conjecture on my part, I think that the show is currently being cast. I don't know that anyone has been cast yet.
Sure, yeah.
I think Addison might have been cast already, but I don't know. I can't confirm that. Okay. That based off of what we've been told, that that there are definitely ideas about the type of actor that they want for some of these roles.
Sure.
I'm not at liberty to say specifics or whatever, but it's clear that they do have some types in mind. Which will be very interesting to see, how that plays out, because that doesn't mean anything.
Sure.
They could find somebody that's completely different from anything that, that they have in mind. But again, I do think that there are some ideas about the characters. So it will be interesting to see the direction that they go for Magic in particular, because of the age thing, like you mentioned. Yeah. Because like you say, if Kirby is still active, who knows? Do they want to go so far as to bring that actor back? You never know. It's, we do have a couple of other characters that have been listed as the guest stars, and Janice, a mysterious woman who was working with Ben in the present before his leap through time, whose true motives remain unknown, cast as a white woman in her 40s. This is one of those situations where I'm just going to flat out say, we know stuff, but we're not telling.
Yeah. Sure, yeah.
So I think it's the description spot on. Take from it what you will. Naomi, I'll just throw this out there. Naomi is the wife of the person that Ben leaps into in the very first episode. That's, we can glean that from pieces of what we've been told, plus with this casting list. So it'll be interesting to kind of see. It'll be interesting to see how they cast her, because I think it will help to set the tone for future guest stars and leaps. You know what I mean? Will this be kind of, and this is, I don't mean any offense by this, will this be a Law and Order thing where you get like a mix of kind of like veteran, TV character actors and a couple of new kids on the block periodically? Or is this going to be a thing where they're going to cast like, people that are maybe more well known for having had a run on a series? They're going to bring in, like, I don't know why this name just popped into my head. It's probably because my wife was telling me about some Instagram stuff a couple of days ago. Will it be somebody like Evangeline Lilly? You know what I mean? Like, obviously it's not going to be her, but will it be somebody who's been on a TV show, and had that sort of thing? Or is it going to be, like I said, like one of those sort of TV character actors that we've seen for years and years and years, but hasn't necessarily ever anchored a show on their own?
Sure. I just laughed because of Evangeline Lilly. She's gotten her own hot water here recently because she attending some anti-vax demonstrations. Yes, yeah, but I'm not. Yeah. Let's not get into that. So we can confirm that this casting notice is genuine. The next thing we confirm is that similar to the original, Ben being lost in time, like you confirmed, he is going to have a Swiss cheese memory, and second, it is. Him being lost in time is going to be a result of him leaping prematurely, which echoes why Sam gets lost in time in the original.
Yeah.
The classic. I'm sorry.
Right. The classic series. Classic. Yep. And, one thing that I think we can put together from this casting notice and some of the things that we've been told is that we're going to see a lot more of the project.
Yep.
So I think that stuff like that, like Ben leaping before things are ready is going to come much more into play than just being kind of, an inciting incident to kick us off and, and get us down the road. I think that's going to be something that carries through.
Which I love, because one, the novel Prelude,
Yes,
very heavily played in that. They went into so much more depth than what the TV show did, and I loved. That's one of the novels that I really loved. And two, one thing that I loved about the classic series, about the first season, that they dropped pretty much after the first episode of the second season, which I did not agree with that direction, was in the first season there was very much this antagonistic nature between the project, between Al and the government, and control of the project. And after Al gets the funding for the project for another 2 years after Honeymoon Express, which is the first season, the first episode of the second season, they totally dropped that from the classic series. And that's one thing that I miss. And I hope that they keep that friction going.
Yeah.
And it sounds like from what we know, that it is planned that is going to be a constant storyline of like the friction between the project and the government.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even in Magic's character description, he uses his no nonsense personality and aura of control to keep the Pentagon at bay while the team tries to rescue Ben. So, I mean, I think we can kind of just, again, piece together right there that, yes, that is going to be a part of things, and that we're going to see, maybe some of those battles, and maybe see stuff outside the project as well. That this isn't going to only be, the project and wherever Ben is leaping, that this is going to be whatever's happening whenever Ben is, as well as 2022. Because it does sound like, and this could, they could fudge this, I don't know, but it does sound like it will take place, that the present day will be our present day.
Yes. So here's the thing that it just popped into my head. And if you're watching this on video, you saw me just like crack up at the thought of it.
I see that. I've seen that for 5 years. Like, it happens all the time.
Yes. Yeah. Is our present day going to look like our present day?
Right.
Or is our present day going to look like the projected future of all of the shiny, flashy cubes from 1999 that was envisioned in the classic series?
Man, I know that there are a lot of people out there that want that.
Please retcon it.
Yeah,
take it back. Yes,
I think that one of the things that people should be prepared for when it comes to certain elements of the production design, and I say this is, again, this is purely just conjecture on my part, I don't know for certain, we haven't been told anything, but I do think that more than likely with production design, when it comes to our present day, that we should expect something more along the lines of, our present day, that you could kind of look at the future, if you will, as the Klingons. Like, you look at the original series, they look like they did. You look at TNG, different set of Klingons. Actually, you could look back to the motion picture, they got the update in the movies, but you look at Discovery, different set of Klingons.
Or I was going to say more specific. I was going to say, like, maybe a more accurate thing is the way the Enterprise is depicted in Discovery when they get incorporated in the show versus the way the classic TOS Enterprise looked.
Right. And let's face it, if you're listening to this, you probably have a passing knowledge of Star Trek. So
we are not a Star Trek podcast. We're going to go out on a limb
there. Yeah, we're not a Star Trek podcast. I mean, it's very, very exciting, because I think that the show, it seems, based off of what we do know thus far, is going to afford us so many more opportunities for storytelling. And this is not a knock on the classic series. Obviously, we've done a podcast for nearly 5 years on the classic series. We love it. But I do think that it just will add to the overall texture, give us more opportunities to explore storylines and characters, and kind of, it could allow the leaps to still be kind of episode of the week-esque, while keeping the momentum of the ongoing storyline. Yeah. And I think that that's Absolutely. Such a great idea.
Yeah. Which you've got to have any more, because I think we mentioned it in our last episode. I cannot think of one show on TV right now that is purely episodic.
Right.
That purely does not have an ongoing storyline from episode to episode. So So we got to have that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I love it. I've loved it. I've talked about it before, but growing up as a kid, my favorite show was Quantum Leap, quite frankly. And then after Quantum Leap went off the air, the next couple of shows that I stumbled into that I fell in love with were, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Babylon 5, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And one thing that all three of those shows have in common is an overarching storyline.
Sure.
And obviously that's the way that television has gone since then. And I think that however the show airs, whether it is on NBC or Peacock. And one thing that it's worth noting is that a lot of NBC shows are now basically simulcast on Peacock. So this could be an NBC show, but you'll still be able to watch it on Peacock. And even if it's not simulcast, you'll probably be able to watch it the next day or something. I mean, yeah, how else do you make a show these days and keep people's attention, really? Especially if you're not dropping it in sort of a binge format like Netflix or something.
Absolutely, for sure. And one last thing before we move on from that is the novel series in the 90s. I think almost all of the novels had something going on at the project. And frankly, my favorite parts of those novels,
right?
What was going on back at the project.
Yeah.
I enjoyed those more than the stories that were actually happening with Sam back in the past for whatever reason.
Yeah. So speaking of Sam, you have one more thing. Okay.
One more thing. One more thing before we drop that final nugget, because that's what we're teasing here. Unlike the original pilot, is we are going to see Ben leap into the middle of a historical event in the late 80s. Not going to say what the event is. I will say Ben is not there to change anything about the outcome of that historical event, but that historical event is the backdrop of the episode.
Right. Yeah. Based off of what we were told, it's really, really cool the way that it's done, because like you said, it's not, the leap has nothing to do with the event, but that's not entirely true. But it's,
Ben is not there to stop the event from happening.
Right. Yes. Right. The other thing too, that's kind of worth mentioning in the midst of all of this is that I think that we have been told that or not even, we haven't been told this directly. We've been able to put together, based off of what we've been told, that the heart of the show, the things that we always talked about when we were talking about the classic series in our previous episodes that we loved the most, it's there. The heart of this show is exactly the same in so many ways. And the domestic quality, if you will, of the leaps, I think is going to be something that we continue to see, that these are real people, everyday people. This isn't about Ben, stopping 9/11. Do you know what I mean? Like, this isn't about, like, this is about Ben affecting the lives of everyday people and the issues and problems that they're facing, much like Sam did. And certainly, there were heightened episodes of the classic series. There were action hero Sam episodes. There were, there's all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, the episodes that I think were the closest to my heart, that I love the most, were the ones that, were a little bit smaller, a little bit quieter in some respects. So that brings us to kind of the final point here, right? The elephant in the room. Again, there are certain things that we are not at liberty to discuss yet. There are certain things that we don't necessarily want to discuss yet. But what we can say, for anyone listening right now who wants to know, it is absolutely the intent of the creators of this show to involve the character of Sam Beckett, and to involve the character of Sam Beckett in such a way that they would have no choice but to cast Scott Bakula.
I think that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Like I said, we can't say we can because there's, I mean, until they say that they have Scott attached to the
Right.
project, you don't know. Things may change, but like I said, what the Observer has been able to tell us is that the creators of this new show certainly want Sam and for Scott Bakula to be involved.
Yeah.
Whether or not that comes to pass in the pilot that they're shooting, or if the series gets picked up, we don't know, but we do know that they want that.
And we also know that Scott is ready, willing, and able.
Sure.
He NCIS New Orleans is over. He was on, the dearly departed Bob Saget's podcast not that long ago, and said very specifically that he would, absolutely come back at a time when, quite frankly, there's a chance that he knew that this was in the works.
Sure,
you know what I mean? Like when you look at the timing of all that, you're just kind of like,
yeah.
And I think if I was a betting man, and I would have to be because I don't know for sure, like Dennis just said, this is not, I don't know. I would say that there's a really good chance that when this pilot airs, that a lot of people are going to be very, very happy.
And a lot of people won't. and maybe I'll say that
it's the way it goes.
And maybe I'll say that as a way to lead us into our outro for this episode, because we promised we were going to keep this one short.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to address in the near future is there has been a lot of feedback online on Facebook and Twitter. People who are very upset at the idea of Quantum Leap that does not have Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell at the forefront. Now, obviously, dearly departed Dean Stockwell cannot be involved. But a lot of people feel like Quantum Leap cannot go on without Scott Bakula in the lead role. Not just involved, but in the lead role.
Right.
And that is something I really want to dive into in a future episode.
Yeah, I think to kind of preview what's to come, because again, the wheels are in motion, and we got a lot of work to do between now and October, which is the sort of the projected date, which again, things can certainly change. That's in flux, but filming will begin March 9th, wrap March 30th. As of right now, that's what will happen. And they will, an air date will most likely come in October. So between now and then, we got a lot of work to do. And some of the stuff that we want to do is that we obviously want to address that. We want to address the concerns that some of the fan base seem to have over the wokeness or potential wokeness of this reboot sequel. Which, if you've listened at all to any of our prior episodes, you know exactly where we stand on that. And the show's always been woke. And we also want to address, in addition to what you were saying about Scott and Dean Stockwell and his, the presence of Al or lack thereof, in the show, how that might be dealt with. And we also want to produce an episode that we think will represent the essential episodes of the classic series to watch before you start the new series, because you've got plenty of time to binge the whole thing if you want to. But if you're looking to just kind of hit what's essential based off of what we've been told, I think we could probably assemble a pretty good list of what you have to watch. Not what you have to watch. This show is going to stand on its own 2 feet. If you've never seen Quantum Leap before, I think you're still going to be good. You're going to have a lot to enjoy. But I think that if you want to watch the series, but you don't have time to watch every episode, we're going to put together the list of what we would consider to be the essentials. And it's not necessarily going to be a list of the best. It's not necessarily going to be like a top 10 or whatever. These are just going to be the episodes that we say, watch these. You're going to know everything you need to know before the pilot hits. And of course, we're going to cover any and all news that comes our way between now and then, because obviously there's going to be new stuff, and we've had a glut, I think, of information over the past 2 weeks. I would imagine that things might kind of, dry up maybe around the time, shooting starts or wraps. I would not be shocked if we got some casting announcements within the next week or
Sure.
two.
Mhm.
And we're going to try to stay on top of those for you. And, the Observer is going to do their very best to maybe give us some of that before anybody else has it.
Sure.
But that is also, completely out of our hands. So we'll see what happens. Um, Again, I want to just kind of say in closing, when it comes to credibility and it comes to what we're trying to do here, again, we've had this podcast for 5 years. We don't make any money off of this. We're not in it to make money. We're just in it because we love it, and we just happen to be in a fortunate position that we know somebody that works for NBC, and they have been generous enough to share some stuff with us because they know how passionate we are and how much we love it. We hope that you will take this leap of faith, pun intended, with us, and know that what we're handing you, to the best of our knowledge, is 100% true, and we will continue to do that, and we will continue to try to give you more information as we can. But I am over the moon, man.
I am, yeah. This week has been a good week. Today was a good day.
Yeah, the times I have just uttered, oh God, oh my God,
oh boy,
oh boy, yeah,
oh boy, yeah.
holy shit, whatever you want to say. Like, the past 12 hours,
Sure, yeah.
specifically, have been pretty nuts. And if you would have told, 11 or 12-year-old me, as I was watching Mirror Image in my bedroom, weeping at the last, at the end credit card, that I would know what I know now, I would not have believed it for a second.
Yeah. It's an exciting time.
Yeah.
All right. Should we leap out of here?
We should leap out of here. I do want to say, for people that are new to the show, you'll get to know us better. We do like to talk about what's going on in our lives. We didn't want to do that today. We didn't want to bore anybody about that sort of stuff. But if you have questions, we're going to open up channels for people to ask us questions. But in the meantime, you can certainly do that through our Facebook page, which you can find at Fates Wide Wheel. And of course, you can find us over on Twitter at Fates Wide Wheel. And
Instagram, Fates Wide Wheel. Our website. By the time this episode airs, we have a really janky website domain, and that was my fault of what we grabbed when we first started this podcast. By the time this episode airs, you can go to fateswidewheel.com, and you will also have our website, which has if you don't use any of the other podcasting platforms, you can just stream our episodes straight from there. If you've been following us on Facebook, you know that we've had some drama over our Apple podcast. And really short, what happened is that our podcast host got sold to another podcast host. And because we often write our episode descriptions in a text editor and copy and paste them into the browser, that caused something to break that broke our feed. And it took 2 weeks of back and forth with Apple Podcast to get our feed fixed.
Yeah.
But now we are back on Apple Podcast. So if you search Fates Wide Wheel, or just search Quantum Leap in an Apple Podcast, us, the Quantum Leap podcast, they will pop up. Becca to the Future, which sadly was a Quantum Leap podcast that stopped about halfway through their run, and then some self-help podcast called Manifestation Babe. Well, we're in the top 4.
Yeah, hey, what are we gonna do? I don't want to. People might need that podcast. I don't want to step on any toes. So
no.
If they happen to, if they happen to come to us by way of that, great. If they happen to go to that by way of us, fine. Whatever people need in their lives.
And I guess maybe on a final note before we leap out of here, Sam, if you're just stumbling onto us for the first time and you are wondering why the hell we're called Fates Wide Wheel, it is an original song that was written for the episode Glitter Rock.
Glitter Rock, yeah.
And with that note, we will leave you with Fates Wide Wheel.
Yes, we're gonna leap out of here. Take care of yourselves and one another. Thank you so very much. We also want to give a quick shout out to Matt Dale, Allison Pregler, and Krista Philippus over at the Quantum Leap podcast. We want your listens without a doubt, but they're producing content as well, and in the spirit of just wanting to celebrate this announcement and celebrate this upcoming pilot. We can only hope that the community will, rally around the show, that new fans will come in, and whether you're coming to us by way of just Google search or listening to something else and deciding you want to listen to more, or whatever the case may be, we welcome everyone, and we just want to share the joy of this new show with all of the content creators that are out there. Right now, it pretty much just seems to be the two of us. There's Fate's Wide Wheel, there's the Quantum Leap podcast, and there's not a whole lot else. So we just want to share that with everyone, and we certainly hope that will take this ride with us, and go back and listen to those old episodes. Feel free to reach out to us, send us your questions, your comments, your hate mail, whatever it may be. We've gotten plenty of all of the above. But yes, Dennis, you're right. It's time to leap out of here. Thank you all so much.